Welcome art enthusiasts and creative minds to SAUSD Art's very first podcast, an inaugural episode of collaboration. I'm your host, Sofia Cuevas, and I'm thrilled to start and learn with the SAUSD Arts team and listeners like you on this very exciting journey. In this podcast, we're diving headfirst into the worlds of collaboration, creativity, the big magic that happens with your brain on art, and much of the work happening within the Santa Ana Unified Arts Department. From brushstrokes that unite ideas to the symphony of creative minds, we're here to uncover the hidden gems that make SAUSD Arts an epicenter of inspiration. Let's join the conversation. Okay, so in Big Magic, and that's where define fear, just that chapter or that little statement alone, and what fear is, and I'm going to read a little. As the saying goes, argue for your limitations, and you get to keep them. Why would I want to keep my limitations? I didn't, as it turned out, and I think that's where a collaborative team looks at the limitations of like, okay, that's where you're limited, but that I'm not limited there. So how might we design something, create something, do something together where we each have strengths that build and move forward together. And I guess that's where I go to the power of collaboration, when you're willing to be not just transparent, but vulnerable, that's the word, vulnerable with others, to be like, I'm not strong in that. And somebody gets to say like, oh, but I am. And that in of itself affirms.
And that's the big magic, because also you might not even know you were strong in that. Uh-huh. You suddenly discovered something about yourself that allowed you to grow into an area or space that you never anticipated, to generate strengths you didn't know you had, and what you contribute to the team. And having flown solo and played the Little Red Hen for a long time, it's really amazing to see the power of the collective, especially because it's greater than the sum of its parts. And we manifest the big magic to them.
And I will say that a lot of that requires relationship capital, because you must trust before you can put yourself out there and be vulnerable, be part of the collective. You have to name the collective. I think some folks enjoy being the flying solo and being the Little Red Hen, whereas others see the greater power that the synergy is greater than the sum of its parts. And we can do bigger, better, more effective strategies if we're relying on people we trust.
So this speaks to the question about how does society shape our thinking about it. We've created a very competitive society where we all feel like we have to, who's better and everything, when really, by nature, and if you study nature, we're designed to be collaborative. By nature.
It's an ecosystem.
Yes.
And we were talking the other day about, the programs are very competitive because everyone's vying for the same kids for the same amount of time, all the same things. Yeah. So they don't want to work together between departments, because if I work with you and grow your department and grow your program, then that's going to take away from what I have. And that's that whole deficit mindset. Instead of changing the way we think about education, educating the whole child and bringing all the pieces together and focus in on the kid and what's best for the kid, the education system is, no, but what about me? And that's not what we're here for.
And we put a lot of emphasis on trophies and awards and accolades and end products, rather than engaging in kids in multifacets of the same project, right? Because there's many dimensions. If a student walks into your class and says, why am I writing in an art class? Because you read and write and speak in different disciplines in different ways. And why wouldn't you? And really, you can't learn anything in a vacuum or in isolation. Everything is integrated.
At this particular moment, it was important to note the definition of collaboration, which is the action of working with someone to produce or create something. Although the team, like many in education and the general workforce, know to understand collaboration as, the question was, how can we strike a balance between individual achievements and the power of collaboration in today's fast-paced and competitive world? If collaboration is seen as more than just finishing a project with a group of people, how might we imagine a space where collaboration and creativity are center stage for more? Have this conversation, and I think part of that statement, fast pace, is we don't take the time, like Wendi said, to build that relational capital to talk.
Well, or maybe more importantly, even the flip side of that is to listen, taking the time to deeply listen. And we're not allowing ourselves, perhaps the profession, it's very challenging to allow the time and to consider that the deeper work.
And I think with the recognitions and the awards and the leveling up, it's about being recognized, being seen. Being part of a collective group is great, but I think as people, we still want to be seen of, hey, you did a great job on XYZ. You know, that this part would not have been possible without your contribution. And just having that validation of being part of that collective instead of the person who's leading it taking all the credit for everything. And I think that also comes down to that trust. Do you trust the person who's leading you to recognize everyone's talents and bring everyone together?
There's some trend setting happening in moving toward collaboration because the United States of America is built on capitalism. And in addition to that, we have information age that we are moving out of in some ways, but we've got cell phones, we've got social media, and collaboration happens in a million different ways, right? But to intentionally be with people in one way or another and connect and then trust. So I don't want to say there's things working against us, but I think collaboration has to be intentional and aware of all these other factors of just the country we live in and how it's been defined over hundreds of years. We are individualistic by osmosis because of the country we live in. And so in what ways do we make those changes to really be intentional about how to track our nation? Right. Yeah. And to Sophia's point earlier, I am fascinated because we do talk about the 4 or 5 or 6 C's now, right? And collaboration being a critical one as part of education. And yet I go into classrooms, I watch other adults, I've been in adult learning situations and a lot of opportunities in that way. And I see that people lack knowing how to truly collaborate, which is why it's a skill set. That if we can't, as adults, do that and learn to work through our differences, because we don't always say or agree on everything. We have our practices to surface those variations in how we see things, but also to allow all voices to be heard. And if we can't do it as adults, then how do we expect kids to be able to do it? We just throw them into scenario. And you really have to set that up with intentionality, as Grant's talking about, because you're right, our world is global. So you could be in the UK and you could be collaborating with people in LA, right, doing your music business, for example. There's so much happening worldwide. And if we're going to really realize the graduate profile, we have to recognize and embrace what it really looks like to get our kiddos thinking out of a contained public classroom.
I had an incredible conversation with Lindsey and Elben last week over lunch, where we talked about, in essence, I want to say, it's how the global economy collaborates. and the pendulum swinging. So we went into this gig economy, industrial to gig economy, because we needed side hustles to survive.
Yeah.
But then the gig economy has saturated everything from arts, music, films, TV, where you're like, I don't know what to watch. Just put something on, or I'm tired. Like I'm streaming. I'm looking and looking and looking, and it's already like midnight, and I should just no. And maybe I'm not watching anything tonight. All of that to say is, when you talk to students now and you ask them about like celebrity status, it's like, oh, they're cool now, and then it's like a flash in the pan. And I'm wondering if that's a form of equalizing across the globe of like, yeah, you're here today and we love what you can give. And then tomorrow you don't have to be here because Wendy's here today. And she provided a different skill set that we love even more and equally as so. I think Elben brought up a good point of the next iteration from gig economy to
convenience economy. Kind of.
Convenience economy. Can you tell me more about that?
Or the idea of convenience, like we have so much stuff flying at us in every direction at all times that we kind of just want to know what to consume. Even sometimes lunch. I open DoorDash like, hey, you like this? I do like that. Yeah. Or I can think of, at home, I turn on Netflix, and sometimes there's literally so much to watch, and there's so many things recommended to you. There's so many things I've put on for 10 minutes, and I think, I don't like this. Mm-hmm. And so what if they're like, hey, we saw all the movies and TV shows that you just watched over the last 100 days, and this is what you watched all the way through. Algorithm, here you go. Things like that. That's what I recall last week's. Honestly.
Well, and the idea too of all, we broke away from like cable TV because we wanted individual platforms, and you had these subscription services. Now there's so many subscription services that it looks like, we were talking about convenience. I'd like to have one thing to log into and just put them all together. Like, I don't want to have to figure out, okay, which streaming service was that on? What was my login for this? How do I get to that?
Interesting thing about consuming art, entertainment, is that we're all missing, as we're doing consuming, we're missing the process part of it. And I think our kids are making their voices are being heard, and they're making such a statement when they want to participate in one of the most collaborative art forms, which is musical theater, because you're bringing a bunch of people with different skill sets, diverse backgrounds. Yes, there is a leader, there is a director, but if you think about it, the director isn't on the stage.
I want to quote you because I think I use this all the time. We are all cast in a giant musical of the life that we live. Everyone has a role. We talk about in theater, no role is too small. And it's really important because if not everybody carries their weight in this giant musical, whether it's work, our home life, our social life, all of that, then it's not successful. So we have to set up everybody to feel successful and recognize all the voices and do it in a way, like Caran said, very strategic and intentional, because it's really easy to sit back and sort of hide or become invisible until you're not part of the whole. And isn't it, we all want a sense of belonging. So at the end of the day, we're talking about community. And I know one of the questions we wanted to talk about is, what's an example of a successful collaboration? I would say Boca de Oro. And we really look at where that started as a really grassroots thing, and working in the community, and how it's grown and how it's become a staple in our district, where we couldn't even see it at first. It was outside looking in. Now it's the inside pushing out all this glorious things, and the many, many, many partners, so many partners in the district and outside of the district, all the disciplines and all the grade levels, and can involve our community, arts and culture organizations, our nutrition services, our after school programs, our arts teachers creating art making experiences, the communal engagements that we've created and led by so many. And it's just become this beautiful collaborative experience for the collective goodwill of the community.
It's collaborative, it is the community event, and it's also allowing all the individuals to be seen as part of the whole and see their contributions in that recognition to allow that further collaboration and allowing that festival to grow.
As I listened, and we after coming out of the teaching and learning secondary check-in meeting, which is fascinating to hear all of the work from all of the different departments, I was trying in my head and on my notes trying to create alignment of like tap into that, link into that, connect with that, because again, the work of collaboration in to me at its core is smarter, not harder. I love your work. How might I capitalize on you and you can capitalize on me equitably so that we may move mountains swifter, quicker, better? And yet, when I think of even Boca, it took time, one. And then I think of all of the things our department is doing with murals from Fremont, Monroe, the graffiti, Washington, the graffiti program with the city. And these are all collaborative and require other departments in the district level and require teachers and school sites and students. And it's work. And this is not including the collaborative process that we are trying to build out with our elementary music staff and our secondary arts educators. I stop and think, well, how do we encourage collaboration when there are still people that think, I'll just do it myself. It's fine. I'll get it done. And it's like, yeah, but that's one voice.
Because it's faster, more efficient to do it yourself. And I appreciate what you said about, I want to connect to that, to that, to that. And people joke about my 40,000 foot view. However, because I have run around for years and years and years and years to try to connect to all the tables and all the things that people are doing and to say the arts are absolutely part of the academic landscape. They're very important, and this is how and why, and we sync up to every initiative that everyone's doing. All of our work has been very mapped out to be in alignment with the graduate profile, the teaching and learning framework, the California Arts Standards of Framework, the strategic arts plan, the board priorities, the LCAP goals. Now we're looking at helping everybody develop their own strategic plans. But by doing all that alignment, we can stay synced. So when I go to board meetings, when I go to teaching and learning meetings, when we're at staff meetings, when you're all out of the field and getting your information, when we're in the community, we take all that, like Sophia is saying, to bring it back to the collective whole, to again, align and ride in those flows rather than creating our own. Why reinvent the wheel? Let's leverage the strengths, resources that everyone brings. So I love the collaborations that we're doing right now with CTE and ELOP teams and how we bring out partners. Yeah, family and community engagement. Yes, all those special education, the way we've expanded to support and bringing in nutrition services and our facilities and building service, like all that we're doing in some of the new processes that were developed, and it has taken a lot of time. You have to go deeply internal to be able to create the infrastructure for things to be sustainable. And that's the challenge of collaboration, because it's so much easier just to do it yourself, get it done, check it off, and, call it good.
Because you think you're checking off the box and you're getting it, quote unquote, done, doesn't mean you're actually doing it efficiently, because you have to go slow to go fast. You have to know what everybody else is doing and see the bigger picture so that you're not duplicating work and duplicating efforts and running around in circles where one person's chasing you, but you think you're chasing them, and it's all over the place. If we all come together and we work collaboratively, then we see where our strengths are and where, like, oh, hey, I can take care of that. here's the information, just send me this, we'll take care of that, and then I'll just ends up syncing and aligning to that greater vision.
Well, and aligning doesn't mean you lose your individuality either, because you're just taking on a different aspect. You're taking on a different facet of the same beautiful diamond that is sparkling. We had a really great conversation yesterday with ELOP when we surfaced some of the gaps in some of the way we've been handling some of our budget situations. And so they have information that can help us. And she didn't realize that, oh, we weren't being asked or being a part of that. And we need to include more voices. And then she said, if we're not including your department, I'm wondering what other departments we have perhaps not invited to the table.
So those magical moments of the, yeah, wait a minute, if we put this one with this one with this one, we got something there. And I as I'm listening to like all of the things, I'm like going back to like, so how might we model what is happening globally at large with convenience, and how might we be the beacon or the pool of, we're a one-stop shop, we're the core, come here, you get the things. You don't have to go to this one, 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 to this conversation, to the back, to this conversation, to this department, to get to this system, to this protocol, so that you can get this one thing. And so how might we become either that remote of just say it in, be the convenience, or say we invite you to the conversation.
Thank you for saying that, because I want to get pragmatic, and this team is great at generating ideas. We just riff like good musicians, right? So that to say, our improvisational artists, we talk about silos in this district all the time, and everybody recognizes that it's a real phenomena. However, what are the practical steps that people are doing to break the silos?
Well, so I have a million thoughts in my head, so we'll just see where this goes.
Okay, beautiful.
Balloons. So the ego is one piece of it. And the ego is individualistic, where I compare it to the soul ego, which is for the collective. So like that's kind of like the start of it. So how do we not manage egos, but like egos are an important thing, but that can drive individualism. So that's the one piece I wanted to say. Then the other piece is collaboration is also like changing, or maybe I'm seeing it differently, because collaboration in the school setting and the way we teach it is task oriented. So you're the note taker, and everybody has their like task responsibility. Mm-hmm. And big magic, or just even the process that I think that our team works often, the Imagineers, is just idea. Collaboration is ideas. And it kind of goes to what you're talking about. Yeah, a lot of times we're just we're riffing together, we're improvising together, and ideas are floating. And then that becomes pragmatic, but it's just interesting for me to like set those things side by side of how I see often in the school setting, collaboration is very task oriented, whereas a lot of what we're even talking about here is the ideas that eventually become ways that we work together to do this and this and this and this, and you're that one-stop convenience shop.
And how do teachers step back to facilitate a process that's more ideation and allowing the students to generate things, as opposed to feeling like we've got to control? Because kids will learn despite us. Yeah,
it's something that's kind of been, as we're having our conversation, I think about is like having the time and space. I think what happens in classrooms, or just not even in classroom, in daily life, is we are so fast-paced, we have so many things, that the most efficient thing to do is just to check things off the list. And I think one cool thing that we've been doing is like providing that time and space, like even talking about both of the planning of that requires time and space for us to be able to do that. I'm not sure exactly what the elementary music team is doing on Wednesdays. It sounds like we're giving them time and space for collaboration. I think that could lead to many great things. Just because I think to be creative, to include the community as a whole, you need that space. Because if you're just running, all you're thinking about is where's my next stop, where's my next goal.
And that reminds me of the book, Your Brain on Art, because we're all creative. Not just those of us in this room, but we're talking about students in the classroom. We're talking about the teachers. And I think sometimes we just forget to tap in. That the book, Your Brain on Art, says you've got to spend 20 minutes every day in a personal creative activity. And I'm wondering if we expand that and involve ourselves in collaborative creative activity.
Right. Yeah. Now, is the big magic, is that Elizabeth Gilbert's?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So she, like, what I love about the idea of like sitting there in your 20 minutes as your brain is on art, and her idea, not her idea, I don't want to use that word, her concept that she presents is that ideas come and they knock. And if you don't act on it, whether that's verbalize it and then it materializes and becomes something different, then it goes and knocks on somebody. Like she defines it as a living, like, ideas,
Personified.
creativity, ideas are actually, and she has a very interesting example in the book of how it was an interesting description, but like to the story, she had an idea for a book and she thought about it for 6 months, thought about it for 9 months, ends up talking with a friend of hers, and she gave up on it. They had the exact, like, that idea. It was just interesting. So it transfers. So creativity, collaboration, ideas, what happens?
Going back to your question of how do we bring that to our students?
Yeah.
You've mentioned a couple different things. It's the recognition of people's strengths and inviting them to the table and giving them that sense of purpose. And I think our students a lot of times don't feel seen, especially since the pandemic. I mean, it was already happening before that, but they were able to hide and able to be behind their screens and not be seen. And that's something that I had noticed was still a very big issue, is that kids didn't want to be seen. We have so many students still wearing masks and their hoods on because they don't want to be seen. So when you start to recognize their strengths and acknowledge that and raise that up, it creates that trust, because they're like, oh, I'm needed. I'm part of this community. And through that relationship building, they start to grow and feel like they can share their ideas. I think that's something that our performing arts teachers are really great at doing, is that relationship building, because they have to for a student to put themselves out there in such a public forum, whether it's just in the group of 30 or 40 kids in their class, or if it's on stage in front of 1,000 people, you have to have that trust in the people that you're with.
Yeah.
And it's a magical thing that I've seen so many of our performing art teachers do, and they spend so much time focusing on that relationship building.
One of our goals has been to see all the kids, right? So we started in PK5, music for every child, and we're trying to expand on that, but we're allowing a forum for every kid to have the opportunity to be seen as a musician, including with our special ed and like United Sound programs, where the student, the teacher, their own family might not have seen them as the artist, and yet magical things come out of these kiddos when they have another way to express themselves. So we have to demystify this idea that art is just for a few talented. You can go on to the next level, but with your brain on art, it's important to everybody to have these outlets. So the things that we've witnessed and that we're trying to now embrace and carry forward, the good practices of others, are really going to help build across the way. In a collaborative setting, how do we create, you were talking about practically, how do we create ways that students are able to walk into a setting and be seen? My ideas are valued right now because where I contribute in this way, because I think often, well, maybe it's just my experience, you come into a room and you might not share your voice. because you don't understand the value of your voice. But like, I think that's a big part of collaboration as well, just the freedom to, my idea matters, my balloon matters, so I have seen people totally transform and grow into themselves in beautiful ways. I'm watching it in our district leadership. I'm watching it in various departments. It's not just amongst the arts, but all of this is happening because they're in a supportive community, and that's the power of collaboration.